Good morning and welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. We've got a lot to cover today. We are going to be looking at jobless claims came out this morning. We're going to be looking at new home sales that came out this morning, and Jamie Dimon warning that rates could actually go up, not down. So there's a lot to cover this morning. So we just want to take and say welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. Hello again, and welcome to the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. Got a lot to cover today, and a lot of it's important because these are going to be really the last economic numbers that we're going to see before the Fed has its meeting next week. So really going to kind of tell where they're headed. And with no meeting in August and then coming into September, we're seeing a continued pattern. And I think something came out with Jamie Dimon, who tends to be extremely blunt and very honest with where he sees the market, came out with a warning to a lot of people as well. So let's hop into it and see where we started out today. So first off, jobless claims came out this morning, and they actually came out lower than what was expected, which is great for people. Nice to see. But remember, Chairman Powell has stated repeatedly that one of his goals is full unemployment. So he's really hitting that goal here. The one thing you got to look at in this number that is kind of concerning is that our continued unemployed people, long-term unemployment, has continued to stay steady. That number is sitting right about 1.9 million and went down just a little bit from the previous week, but it's holding steady. So what we're seeing is it is taking people longer to find jobs. So we've got that news out there. And then the new home sales numbers came out as well. And this is concerning because what we're seeing is that number is extremely flat. We had 627,000 home sales, and that shows roughly it's about 1.2% higher than it was in May of this year, and it is still a little bit above June of 2024, which is nice. But this is the concern we have, is that this represents a supply of 9.8 months at the current sales rate. That is a big supply of homes for builders. And with that, if their inventory is that high, one thing that is going to cause, it's going to continue to cause a slowdown in the start of new homes. And you're seeing really what I feel is like a panic on the part of a lot of the builders out there. And this is what we're currently seeing. This is information from 3 separate builders. This first one happens to be Park Square Homes. And they came out this morning, and this is just 4 homes of a list of about 20 homes. And you're seeing here the price cuts that are coming. So you've got a home that was at 730,000 dropped to 706,000. You got another one. This is a smaller drop, 651 to 649. Another one, 565 to 551. So they're not cutting quite as bad as some other lenders or other builders. Then you've got Taylor Morrison, and look at this one. You have a home priced at $442,000 with a $52,000 price cut. That's over a 10% price reduction on that home. Why does this all matter? Is because builders never like to cut the prices of their home. That really is their last ditch effort in trying to sell a home. And what happens now is in this subdivision here at Westview is this now becomes your latest comp. So anyone who has bought in that property in the past year at probably the 540, 550 range, and this home sells at 390, you've just lost that $50,000 in value. And this is where we start to see a lot of trouble. And we went through this last week in the numbers, in that the people who are having trouble are the ones who've bought their home at the peak 2021, 2022, towards the end of 2023, where the prices were extremely high. And now we've actually seen a price reduction. Orlando's averaging about 3.7% less than the previous year as far as pricing. So if someone has to sell their house quickly, there's a good chance they're going to be upside down. And I think this is a problem that we're going to be seeing over the next year or two, is that with the newer homes that were bought during the pandemic period, is a lot of the builders really jacked up the prices. Were able to actually sell a lot of their properties over list price. And I think that we're going to see a lot of people starting to come out underwater on a lot of their houses. So this is another builder doing massive price cutting. And here's another one, Lennar. They sent an email out of roughly about 50 houses that had price cuts. 50 houses. And you just sit here and you look at this. Here's one. This is a $345,000 listed home that they've dropped to $269,000. That is a $77,000 price cut on a home at 340. That is basically a 20% price cut on a home in order to sell the home. That is incredible. And not only are they cutting the price $20,000, we look up here, they're offering a 3-1 or a 5-1 arm at 3.99%. And they're offering FHA rates at 4.625%. That's probably costing that builder anywhere from another $20,000 to $35,000 to buy down these rates. Home builders are in a world of hurt, and there's no end in sight currently for them. Why they're continuing to do some of the developments that they're doing around here in Orlando doesn't make a lot of sense. I would pause them until this market kind of settles out. And the only thing that's going to help settle it out is people start getting huge pay rate increases so that they can actually afford the homes, or the actual rates start to drop. And those are two things that I don't see happening. So what are these builders going to do? They have to keep moving these houses. They have to keep their inventory moving to keep the cash flow moving. So home builders over the next year and a half are really in a world of hurt over this whole item. So getting back to the Fed, here's what we've got. We've got jobless claims that are steady. We've got the housing that's kind of died out. And then you've got Jamie Dimon, the head of Chase Bank, who's one of the most respected CEOs of banking in the world, warning people you're underestimating the chance of interest rate hikes. Why would they increase interest rates? Why would the Fed do that? Simple. The economy's too hot. If our job market is good and we're doing well economically, except really for housing right now. Housing is just getting beat to a pulp. Then the Fed has no reason to cut rates. And they're also mentioning that the tariffs, you're starting to see some of the inflation from the tariffs. So you've got the chance of higher interest rates, steady employment. There's just no reason. It goes against everything that the Fed has. And going into the July meeting right now, no one's expecting it. No one is expecting a rate cut. We're sitting at 97% people not expecting a rate cut. Then we got 2.6% who like to play the lottery on a daily basis. Not going to happen, guys. Just not going to happen. And then we get into our September, and now we're at 58% of people think there's going to be a rate cut. This is interesting because when I first pulled this up this morning, we were at 60%. So there's something a little bit in the news that came out, which was probably the jobless claims, numbers that had people pull back a little bit. Well, I'm not with them. I don't think they cut in September either, especially if we continue to get some trade deals in place and the tariffs really start hitting, because remember, he's got agreements now. Trump has agreements now. And the average tariff is actually going to turn out to be 15% as opposed to 10%. So you're going to start seeing pass-throughs. Walmart put out their numbers this past week, and they passed through about 51% of the tariffs in price increases. So not everyone's trying to absorb the tariff price increases. They are starting to pass it through to the consumers. So we may start seeing a higher inflation rate. We may break above that 3% point again. And if we break above that 3%, we're not cutting. They are not going to cut. So what's the solution? What can we do? Well, I go back to what we went over last week, and it's really kind of simple. Is the rate of margin between the 10-year and mortgage rates right now is historically high. It's at 2.5%. If you want to get the housing market rejuvenated, you've got to crush that margin. That margin's got to come back down. It's got to drop a point. We drop it to 1.5. We're going from 7% down to 6%. That 6%, that 1% is going to make a world of difference to everybody. An absolute world of difference to everybody. So if you want to do something, get on your Congress people, get on Trump, get on the people who matter, Pulte, and tell them, hey, it doesn't make sense to continue to rag on Powell. It just doesn't. I understand exactly why they want the rates to go down. We got $9 trillion of deficit to refinance before the end of the year. And if we don't lose, or that interest rate isn't reduced a little bit, we're in a world of hurt. We're going to go from roughly, I believe it's about a 1.3% average, maybe 1.5% average, to a 4% or a 4.5% on $9 trillion. We've just destroyed our deficit and our budget completely. And quite honestly, that's Yellen's fault. Yellen, I don't know what she did. I don't know what she was thinking, but to refinance long-term into short-term was just stupid. It was absolutely stupid with the rates going higher. And the rates had already started to go higher, and she refinanced a lot of the debt. Don't understand why. Makes no sense whatsoever to me. So this is what we're working with right now. And it's frustrating because you feel a little bit of hope, but you're seeing some really stupid moves on the part of a lot of people. And the media is out there, and they're just pushing Powell. Oh, possible rate cuts. Oh, this possible rate cuts. Then you see, well, he was, referred for criminal referral for the refurbishing or rehab of the Federal Reserve building. Now that was a nice rehab. I would have gotten that one. It was like $2 or $3 billion. That's kind of ridiculous. So overall, I think we're stuck where we're at. I don't see anything happening over the next couple months. But if you are a buyer, take advantage of it. Take full advantage of it. Look at these houses that are sitting on the market. Look at these builders. I mean, my gosh, walk into the builder. Say, look, I know you cut prices over here. I want the same price in this development over here. It's the same model. And I want this interest rate. I want the $20,000 that you're giving me for the closing costs, so that all my closing costs are paid for. There's so many opportunities in the new builds right now that it's really diminished the opportunities for sellers in the resale market, because they can't compete. They can't offer a buy down. They can't pay $30,000 to do a buy down to a 4.99%. They can do different things, but they're not going to be able to match the builders at this point. And that's the difficult part of the resales. And that's why you're seeing the number of resales has died. And when we get into this week's numbers for Orlando, we see that. We're just it's the same broken record that we've had for the past year. Same broken record in that 443 sales, 435 last week, no big change. Our median sales price staying flat, 440. Inventory decreased by 18, but it's still at the highest level it's been since 2019. So there are a lot of resale opportunities out there. Then the condo market is just sitting there. 124 condos per week being sold is just nothing. Nothing. When you look at that, we've got 4,488 homes available. That's the number of condos, and you're only selling 124. That's horrible. Absolutely horrible. Then we get into our numbers that we look at on a regular basis. Here's our inventory sitting right there at the 4.93, 5 months. It's a buyer's market. It doesn't need to be 6 months. This is a buyer's market. And our original list to sales price, we continue to see that this discount is larger than normal. We're at 93% of the original. So 7% off of the original list price. So when you're looking at a house and you check to see what is that original list price, and you only see they've dropped to 2%, you've got room. You've got room to negotiate different things. Maybe it is, 3% towards closing costs, plus a price reduction. Plus, you're going to want to get certain things fixed. You take advantage of the knowledge that is out there and the information that's out there. Then we look here. Here's the graph of our weekly sales. And again, we're just sitting there, slow, steady, no big ups, no big downs. Then our total actives kind of flattened out. And I think a lot of this is that, it is July. People aren't looking to move quite as much. July always tends to be a little bit slower month overall for a lot of people. And a lot of people are on vacation, that type of thing. So we're not seeing as many homes go on the market as we normally do. Then this is interesting because the number withdrawn is still staying steady. You're seeing an average 200 homes per week being withdrawn off the market. Sellers who just have given up on the whole sales process. And this just goes back to, the report that Redfin put out a couple weeks ago, which is there's a difference, a divide between what sellers think their home's worth and what buyers feel their homes are worth. And that roughly is sitting about 9%. And that's consistent with these numbers that we see every week. We're sitting at 7% in Orlando, but nationally it's sitting at roughly 9%. So there's just that big divide. And buyers, they're not going to buy if they don't get exactly what they want right now. They have that option. They can walk away. I've got a couple rental listings that we're looking at. One is in Moss Park, roughly about $3,000 per month. And I've got 15 calls in 3 days on a $3,000 rental. That kind of blew me away. Wasn't expecting that. I thought maybe 2 or 3, but to have 15 calls on a $3,000 rental and no one's looking to buy. None of them are looking to buy right now. They're all on pause. So you've got all these built up, this growing number of buyers who are just like, nope, it's not the right time. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it unless I get exactly what I want. And they're all sitting there going, oh, I need rates to drop. I need rates to drop. Well, rates aren't going to drop. The only thing that can change, that can help us right now, truly, is that margin between the 10-year and what rates currently are. That's it. That's the only thing that's going to help, because the Fed is not going to cut rates. Quit daydreaming. Not going to happen. Then we get into our condos, and here we go. 8.7 months worth of supply of condos. Huge supply. And then again, our original list to sales price, 91.79%. So you should be expecting at least an 8% discount if you're looking to buy a condo. I think you can push it further, quite honestly. And the reason why I think you can push it further is because nobody wants to pay the HOA fees that have just grown by 30, 40, 50% over the past 2 years. No one wants to have that nut over their back on a monthly basis. They just don't want it. And here you see graphically, flat as can be on the monthly sales. And also our inventory hasn't increased. And I think a lot of it is a lot of sellers just don't feel that they can sell their units at this time. Something's got to change to help them sell the units. So that's our overview of what's going on that's affecting our housing market, both nationally and here locally. If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, please like, subscribe, and join us every week. And I'm Brenden Rendo with the Homes in Orlando team, and this is the Orlando Real Estate Buzz. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.